Welcome to another edition of Community Conversations. I'm Laura Wagoner, your host. In my community affairs role at Villanova University, I've met many exceptional people doing great work, from university professors and leaders of service organizations to law enforcement officials and township commissioners. The goal of this program is to provide you, the viewers, a monthly glimpse into the people making headlines at Villanova and across the township. Today I'll introduce you to one of those people that plays an instrumental role in helping make Villanova University the special place that it is. Bridget Wadzuk is a professor in the Department of Civil and Environmental Engineering at Villanova University and works with the Villanova Urban Stormwater Partnership and the Villanova Center for Resilient Water Systems. Dr. Wadzuk teaches courses and researches in the area of water resources. She has over 14 years experience specializing in stormwater management with research on designing, implementing, monitoring, analyzing, and modeling various stormwater control measures, including constructed wetlands, bioretention, green roofs, and infiltration trenches. Her focus within these systems has been to develop an understanding of the hydraulic processes within stormwater control measures and manipulate them to optimize design and performance. Dr. Wadzuk is also engaged in community outreach and education on stormwater issues, including elementary and high school students, as well as the broader stormwater community. Thank you for being here today, Bridget.
Thank you.
So tell me a little bit about your background. What got you interested in stormwater management?
So I grew up in the Hudson River Valley of New York, so grew up seeing the river and was always kind of connected to water systems and trying to protect them. Then eventually, as I went into college, it was the water resources engineering classes that kind of resonated with me, and I did my undergraduate work here at Villanova, actually. And so that's what kind of resonated with me, and then I decided to pursue water resources further with my graduate studies at the University of Texas at Austin. And again, that's where I really kind of cemented the type of work that I wanted to do. Then I was lucky enough to get a professorship back here at Villanova in the civil engineering department. And that's when I started working with Dr. Rob Traver and Dr. Andrea Welker, two faculty within the department. And they were working on stormwater systems, management systems. And this was back in 2005, so relatively early on in where we are in green infrastructure stormwater management. And as I was learning about these systems and beginning to research these systems, I really enjoyed how this aspect of water resources engineering really tried to think and respect the natural environment and work with it to figure out how we could deal with stormwater and flood management type issues, as opposed to try to kind of compete against it. So,
interesting. So faculty at Villanova have been leading the way in stormwater management research for more than 2 decades. Can you talk a little bit about what you, your fellow faculty members, and what your focus is in stormwater management?
Absolutely. So again, what we try to do is really focus on these natural type of systems. And so we're working with trying to capture water when it rains where it falls, as opposed to letting it run over land, over rooftops, and then into the storm sewers. Especially in this area, our storm sewers are just old and they can become overwhelmed. So if we can do more source control, as we call it, treating water exactly where it falls, then we have a better time of making all of our systems work a little bit better over the longer haul. So we really focus in on these green infrastructure systems. And what I mean when I say green infrastructure is trying to use systems that, again, use natural hydrologic processes. So when it rains, water can seep into the ground through infiltration. Some of that water is going to go back into the atmosphere as evapotranspiration, and then some of it will run off and eventually move into the sewers. So we've been really working on over the past 2 decades on understanding the processes of these systems. When I talk about green infrastructure, I mean things like rain gardens that you might see in parking lots outside different developments, a green roof perhaps. There's other features as well, like infiltration trenches, wetlands, and stuff like that. But what we really started on was just trying to understand how well these systems perform. and how well they can mitigate some of our flooding issues related to those kind of everyday rainfall events that we get. You know, that kind of small, typical storm, not a big hurricane coming through. And then over time, as we've understood some of the basic processes a little bit more, has when we've looked into more of looking at broader concepts. So understanding rainfall patterns, how they're changing, and how can we think about how these systems are going to be able to continue to perform well over time, how to properly maintain these systems over time so they really become economical and efficient infrastructures to meet our stormwater management needs over a longer period of time. We've been working with different organizations in the area, but we also work with colleagues from across the nation to really try to understand some of our best practices. And again, our focus is really thinking about how we can mesh the science with the natural environment to come up with a solution that ultimately will have good economical benefit, good environmental benefit, and good social benefit.
Wow. Are students involved in that process at all?
Yes. You know, being based at Villanova University, of course, our first mission is education. And working with students to bring them into the research is really, I get so much enjoyment out of it from multiple aspects. First, I get to witness their sense of discovery as they're going through and learning about some of these concepts and seeing them work in real time. Maybe a system that they built or helped to monitor in terms of research. We're looking at data and starting to see patterns, and then linking that to, well, how do we regulate these? What is the policy on these? How can we design them better moving into the future? Because the other thing that we're doing is we're really working with them to make sure we're helping to educate new engineers who are going to be able to go out into the workforce and bring these tools to the communities and the clients that they're working with, ultimately hoping to kind of really promote green infrastructure, stormwater management, but to do so with a strong technical background and also a view of what really we are trying to do, you know, with this type of engineering tool.
Very cool. So you have multiple partners on campus, correct? Are you in the College of Engineering?
I'm in the College of Engineering, and I'm specifically in the Civil and Environmental Engineering department. We also work with mechanical engineering professors to help us with sensors. A lot of what we're doing is actually field work where we're putting sensors out, trying to collect environmental data. We can work with computer engineers or computer scientists to help understand how we can manage that data, manipulate it in different ways, analyze it to try to understand patterns that we might not just see by looking at the data very simply. And so we kind of work across multiple departments.
That's very cool. So what type of funding do you receive for your research, and how is that money used?
Okay. So we have external funding from several different sources. We have either external funds through grants and contracts with organizations such as the Philadelphia Water Department or the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection, also at the federal level, National Science Foundation and the United States Environmental Protection Agency. And those funds are they kind of represent all of our stakeholders. But then we also have received funds from private organizations such as donation foundations and things along those lines. And that lets us access research and ask research questions that are a little bit different than what we might be able to ask under are more federal or state agency type questions. And I think that gives us the ability to really start to understand the suite of different stormwater management questions we need to ask and answer, because then we also are seeing who all of our stakeholders are, who all the community members are that we need to be reaching out to and considering their concerns in terms of stormwater engineering. And how those funds are spent are primarily in the support of collection of data, which really comes in terms of giving our graduate students stipends for their work. So we have graduate students who are pursuing educational degree, but then they're also doing research in parallel to their coursework to, again, kind of enhance their educational experience. And they work quite hard for us. And, you know, again, we spend a lot of time collecting data. A lot of times it's the grad students that are the actually ones in the field in the rain. And so the monthly stipend kind of just covers their basic kind of housing costs and things like that. And then, of course, we are doing field monitoring, and so we also use those funds for sensors that we're going to deploy out into the field. We'll also collect water quality samples in the field and then bring them back to the laboratory that we run and maintain. So expenses for the laboratory supplies and testing equipment as well. So that's really how our funds are being used.
Wow, very multifaceted.
Yes.
And how do you share the knowledge gained from that research? I know I read that you work with PennDOT a lot. What exactly is the Villanova Urban Stormwater Partnership?
So the Villanova Urban Stormwater Partnership started about 20 years ago, and it's this really, I think, wonderful organization that's able to bring together researchers like ourselves at Villanova, and then government entities from your small municipalities up to the Philadelphia Water Department, up to the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection, and Pennsylvania DOTs, so your larger state agencies, but then also bringing together industry. So your practicing engineers, the ones who are really designing and building a lot of these green infrastructure systems. And the VUSP, as we call it, the Villanova Urban Stormwater Partnership, really serves as kind of a clearinghouse and a place for us to have discussion. So we'll have meetings once a year, and it's a time for our industry and government partners to tell us what questions they have. What are the things that they keep running into over and over again? Is it a policy issue? Is it a design feature that isn't working? So what are the problems that they keep seeing? And then we try to formulate a research question. We then go forth, research it, and then come back to an answer, with an answer hopefully to them. And it's a repetitive process. We keep kind of building on it. With for instance, PennDOT, though, we actually do have an external funding grant with them, so that conversation is more frequent.
Okay.
We do meet with them regularly where, again, they expressed some questions, concerns about some of their designs, wanted to understand, especially with the PennDOT project that we're working with, is the I-95 expansion. So it's a very big infrastructure project, and they're putting a lot of green infrastructure into that system. And they have some, for instance, rain gardens in now. Are they the best designs? Can they improve them as they move down 95 in terms of their construction? As they continue to move south, they're going to encounter some different issues, right? You actually become below the river. So what do we do in those cases? So in that case, we're having these conversations where they're regularly asking questions, we're giving back feedback incrementally, and then we keep, again, kind of revising what they want us to look at, what we can kind of research, and we move on from there.
That's a great ongoing conversation.
It really is. It's an exciting opportunity.
And you mentioned working with local officials and municipalities. Do you work locally here in southeastern PA? So
in terms of working with some of the more local southeastern Pennsylvania municipalities, it's not necessarily the connection that we have with PennDOT on a funded project like we do, but it's more just outreach. So myself and some of my colleagues will regularly talk at different community meetings if we're invited. We also have built on campus a living laboratory. We have a research and demonstration park of all sorts of different green infrastructure systems. So we regularly have people come to campus to do a tour. So we've had the Philadelphia Horticultural Society come. There is, in southeastern Pennsylvania, an organization of all the groundskeepers of large land entities such as hospitals, universities, corporate parks, and they came a couple years ago and did a tour because we work a lot with our facilities management and specifically our grounds team. And so how can you have an interaction and how can you incorporate green infrastructure into your groundskeeping plans? So those are just a few examples of some of the local outreach that we've worked on.
Wow, and you've done a lot statewide as well, right?
Yes, and so again, that's mostly through an educational outreach. Going back to why we're funded to do research is, if I was a client wanting a rain garden built and I went to an engineering firm and they said, let me try this new thing, I think it has a 50% success rate. The client's probably not going to want to do that. But with research, we get to understand not only what works, but also what didn't work. So I think a big part of the outreach that we do, especially in our communication to especially the local municipalities and across the state, is understanding why something didn't work. And so then we can make recommendations to how to modify a design or how to change a construction practice that is going to have a negative impact on how these systems work. And as a culmination of this, every 2 years we host a municipal workshop and the Pennsylvania Stormwater Symposium. So this October, October 15th, we have a municipal workshop, which is really a lot of the municipal engineers and other stormwater professionals and people who are engaged in stormwater management come to campus for a day-long workshop and really just share ideas and have a conversation over the course of the day. And then on October 16th and 17th, we have more of a technical conference, the Stormwater Symposium, and that's really bringing together engineers, so engineers from different engineering firms, as well as engineers from your PennDOTs, Pennsylvania DEP, Philadelphia Water Department, those entities. Again, they come together for a conversation, but also that's where we're all sharing lessons learned, what worked, maybe some new ideas that we can use to help keep moving stormwater management forward.
Wow, that sounds incredible. So talk to me about stormwater management at the Commons, the new dorms at Villanova.
Yes, so the Commons, I mean, all of my research sites are my favorite research sites, but I'm very excited about the Commons. It's a very innovative project. And what I think is particularly special about this project is over the past 20 years, Villanova University, through its commitment to sustainability and its commitment to education, but specifically the facilities management group at Villanova, has really enabled our research group to do what we did and turn campus into this living laboratory. And over the time where I've been working with the horticulturist and, we've been trying to understand what he needs in terms of maintenance and what I need in terms of research, we've been building this conversation and having a dialogue about stormwater management. So when the university was going through the proposal and designing the plans for the Commons, and we're working with the engineering firm that they had hired, and I saw that they had some really innovative stormwater management on the plans. I was very excited to see that because it really kind of shows over the 20 years that this conversation has been heard, and they really wanted to incorporate this into the plan. And there are multiple rain garden systems, infiltration systems, and then also these big cisterns underground that I'm particularly interested in studying. And so over the course of, once the design was planned, I did work with facilities, and they came to me and said, how can we help you develop a research laboratory here? So I'm excited to continue to keep researching that site. So the cisterns.
Yes, what is a cistern?
Yes, so a cistern is basically a big tank where you can store water. So you might have seen just a little rain barrel outside a home where your roof gutter just leads directly into there. And usually people will use that water for irrigating their garden or something like that. And so that's considered stormwater harvesting. So stormwater harvesting seems like a relatively simple, easy way to get some stormwater maintenance. You take the water off of your roof and then you hold it and use it for something else. It's that using it for something else that has been a bit tricky. Some people have tried to use it for gray water, meaning flushing toilets and things like that. However, depending on, you need enough people to use it. And in a place like Villanova, in a residential hall or even an academic building, we have times of the year where the buildings are not heavily used, like in the summer when the students aren't here. So they needed to come up with a reuse system that was always going to be working. So they have these two very large tanks underground that the rooftops from the building are directly connected to. So when it rains, those tanks will fill up. And then after that period of time, there's a pump and a filter, and the water is then going to be used into the HVAC system, the air conditioning and heating system within the buildings. And this is actually a very innovative usage. I only know of one or two other projects that I know of in the United States that are using a technology like that. So this really is a leading
edge. That's really setting Villanova apart.
Yeah, it's a really leading edge technology. And if we can start figuring out how to better reuse the water we capture in stormwater harvesting, I think the stormwater harvesting will take on its shape of its own in that greener stormwater management plan. But there's the second benefit of not only capturing the stormwater and not allowing it to go into the sewer system or downstream where it can erode our streams, but you're also saving the potable water that's normally needed, so your drinking water that is needed in your HVAC systems. So there is an energy savings that's associated with a water savings that's associated with it. So it really is quite a sustainable solution.
And does that have a benefit not only to the university, but to the surrounding area?
So absolutely. You know, even though southeastern Pennsylvania is a relatively water-rich area in terms of, you know, it's not like the American Southwest where we have a lot of water conservation issues, we still need to be thoughtful about how much drinking water we're using because of the energy that goes into producing your clean water. So in terms of not necessarily taking that drinking water and using it for something that does not need drinking water level cleanness, like an HVAC system does, I think we'll have a larger impact as well. In terms of stormwater management, the amount of water that can be stored in these cisterns is massive. And what we're going to see, hopefully, over the next couple of months, we're starting to research them now, is how much water they actually are going to be able to take on and really prevent from then moving downstream where there could be some, you know, stormwater flooding.
So you mentioned that Villanova is sort of leading the charge in those efforts. In stormwater management as a whole, is Villanova still up there as one of those universities?
I would say so, and I don't think it's
not just because you're doing it.
Yes, so I had the wonderful opportunity this summer of going to a conference in Lyon, France, and it was quite interesting because people from Australia, Norway, France, South Africa, I chatted with people from all over, and they all knew about Philadelphia and about what Villanova was doing in stormwater and really thought of us as a leader.
That's great. Well, for any of our viewers who are watching who maybe have stormwater issues, do you have any advice for them?
Yeah, just think about how, you know, within your own landscape that you can take, as we call it, little sips out of the rainwater budget. So where can you infiltrate, meaning get that water into the ground, do that.
That's great. All right. Thank you so much for being with us here today, Bridget. I'd like to thank Brigids Background for participating in today's show. We look forward to next month's show as we introduce you to other individuals making news and positively impacting the communities around us. For more information on some of the great things happening at Villanova and opportunities to be involved, please visit www.villanova.edu/neighbors.